Hey TV fans, Bored Now back with you. On this video I'm going to be talking about Free Body Problem, Episode 5 Judgment Day and Episode 6 The Stars Are Destiny. Full spoilers for both the episodes from the start as always. And a really good pair of episodes, I thought. Some really strong stuff in each one. It's funny because one of the commenters on one of the other reviews said then the show was good up to episode 5 and then kind of fell apart. Well, so far there's no sign of that. Not from my point of view anyway. Obviously some people might disagree. But a good way to sum up these two episodes is then the first one, Judgment Day, you get a really big dramatic event and then a little bit of the fallout of that event and just how it's going to shape things moving forward for the rest of this season. And if they get another season, I could see some of it spilling over into that as well. And then the one after that, the episode following, did feel a little bit more of a come down, even though they were building things up for some big things moving forward. It was a little bit more of a come down, as you would expect. And it's a lot of like smaller sort of character moments, which I did appreciate a lot of that, because the characters have definitely grown for me as the show has gone on. I've gotten more into them than I was maybe at the start. But I'll start by talking about Judgment Day. And in this one, Wade puts his plan into motion to attack the ship, the oil liner, and to like wipe them out, and also to get the key intel from Mike to get answers about what exactly the aliens are planning. So that's the big like set piece, if you want, of the episode in the middle, and then there's a big like spill out. And I say it's a really good episode for Wade because he manages to be both a very like kind of creepy sort of character, but also very entertaining because he has some choice lines. He has some good banter with Clarence. It's like they literally are good cop and bad cop, which is something which I know Lynn said when they first arrested her in the last one, I think it was. So it's funny then you can literally see them as that in the show. Because we open with a scene with Wade approaching Raj, which is Jin's boyfriend, and he's asking him all these questions, and Raj is being like quite suspicious. But I love all this because it's like he asks him for his credentials, or he says like, really, if you ask me for like credentials and that, you really are a sack of shit, he says. And then he asks him for his credentials, and there's a lot of good stuff, like I said, with him and Clarence when they're talking about like Genghis Khan and things like that and the roots of people. So he's a great actor. He manages to be both entertaining but also very like underhanded and quite seedy. And these two episodes, this one especially, definitely paints him more and more as someone who you maybe can't trust, or certainly has his own agenda and maybe is in it for like selfish purposes. A lot of that is exposed in this. There's also a little bit more background before we get to the big event, because there's more from Lynn when she's being interviewed and questioned by Clarence. We just clear some things up. She again insists on, you arrested me because they wanted it, they allowed it, and she says, unfortunately, they've deemed me useless, that's why they allowed me to be taken. And she also clears up then Mike what was or is Vera's dad. She has a funny line about in biologically only. She says the headset was, of course, hers. It wasn't Vera, so she lied about that, and that she used that to recruit Jin because of Jin's like skills and knowledge. This is also Oggy's biggest episode so far, I think, where the character really comes into her own. Her and Jin are being kept at like a house in the country out of danger, and they're debating this whole thing, what to do next, and not agreeing on everything. But Clarence approaches Oggy, asking her can they use her experiments, the science, and asking her to reopen the stuff which caused her some of these problems in the first place. They have a really nice scene. They've got good chemistry together. Because she's like, I need a drink, and he sides her some whiskey, which is really good, and then when she says it's not great, he says, yeah, it's just the cheap shit. But they do have a nice little rapport together, those two, so I enjoyed their scenes. And he tries to convince her. Eventually he does. She's obviously reluctant, and he won't tell her why they need it, but says they do, and it's important. And when you see the way things escalate later, you wonder how much Clarence knew about Wade's plan. Maybe he was kept a little in the dark himself, and he was just doing his job. I don't know, but you do wonder when you see what happens later. So Oggy does agree. She loads up the computer again, and she has a moment of like excitement seeing her work back up and running, and she does hug Clarence. But then she realises she's having none of the flashes. She's having none of the numbers appearing once again. And Clarence says, well, I think it's because God is no longer protecting like the aliens. I can't remember how he puts it, but that's the basis of what it's. They're no longer protecting them from you, so that's why you might not be seeing the flashes. But they load it back up and they set the plan in motion. And once again, there's question marks because Wade approached Raj, and the reason is because he wants him to front up the mission. He is a Navy officer, and they want to use his ship. And they build up the stakes to this thing really nicely, because you've got they're using like her chemicals, and it's on the ship, and they question, will the ship be able to hold all the weight? And then Oggy at one point is asking Raj, can Wade really be trusted? Should we be doing this? Is it too much of a risk? And the way this thing plays out is, it does seem to it clearly takes Oggy off guard. I think it even takes Wade a bit off guard, even though he's trying to play it cool. But it takes it like I get the impression she doesn't know exactly what they're going to use her experiment for. But man, it goes to pretty extreme places, because this like toxin starts wiping out the whole crew on this ship in quite a graphic way. Like, they dissolve, and you see quite a bit of blood. You see like children running, because there's of course children on this ship, and they're doing it ultimately to get, partly as a shot to them, but also to get to Mike and get the intel that they want. But it is pretty extreme, and it does cast Wade as a villain, I think, and Oggy is really stunned by it. But because in the next episode, when Raj and Jin are like debating it, and like innocent people were killed, and he says, well, they're monsters, like they were involved in this and that. But then again, on the other hand, there were children on the ship, and they don't actually show you the children being killed, but I think it's fair to assume they probably were, unless they got into some sort of a life ship. I don't know, you sort of saw them running, but I think, as far as I know, they were killed. So that's pretty extreme, because you can't really group the children in with like the adults and their responsibilities. But they do it to get to Mike and the intel, and at first he's trying to escape, but then he realises he's doomed, and he prays for forgiveness to the Lord, who's been out of contact with him, by the way, ever since he told the story, and like they deemed that he was lying and couldn't be trusted. And that's definitely something they're playing with, because when this happened later on, again, I think Lynn is suggesting then, once again, it's the will of the Lord. It's all in the plan. Like she says, she can't explain why, but that's what she believes, it seems. So later on, when they're going through the wreckage, Wade finds the intel that he's been looking for, but then they try and decrypt it with like an expert, and there's this gag with like Clarence, in the scene where like the guy's like, it'll take like 1 trillion years to break this down, and we don't have like the same level of software. And then it opens and Clarence, well, it wasn't anything you did, like they did it on purpose, they want us to see this. And then they see like the file, and the file is just like massive and like something the size you couldn't get regularly on Earth, like. So that causes a thing, but they still need to try and see what's inside it. So they call Jim back in, and once she sees it, she figures out then they need to go back inside the game, like the virtual reality world. That's what they're asking them to do. So they get out the headset, and it's actually Wade who goes in with her this time, and they're confronted by the virtual reality woman, the AI, and she lays it out quite distinctly, because she says them what's happened here is then her race is doomed, and the reason is because their technology, their science doesn't advance as much as humans. So she says, if you look at all the advancements in human like evolution in science, sure, they've taken quite a few years, but they're relatively small amounts of time compared with how long it would take us in contrast. So her point is then, like, humans have always been around on the same planet all that time, and you've had evolutions, and they've like moved to the next stage and moved with the times, if you like, and they keep like building. Whereas the problem with the aliens, and they don't have the same like rate of progress, and they keep getting wiped out, and they have to keep rebuilding, is what she's saying. But the solution to that is then they've set off a series of probes to planet Earth, like almost like spies in a way, and it entered like the atmosphere a few weeks back now, and it's in hiding. And this is how they plan to defeat them, because she says it's getting inside the technology, and it's going to destroy the technology. And it explains what the flashes have been, what the illusions have been, what the numbers have been, because she says it makes you see what you want to see, and that's what like Oggy has been seeing, and what a few of the others have been seeing. So that's kind of the big dramatic end to the episode. Then we see the effects of this starting to take place, and it just leads to mass hysteria. So you see it appearing on like screens saying you are bugs, things like that. You see Oggy in the square at one point stopping and looking at it, and being all over the world. And it's all over the world, I think. But anyway, the purpose, it seems, is to like cause chaos, and that's how they're going to get to Earth, as well as like, disrupting their technologies, and slowly that's going to turn things around. So yeah, it's a really fun end to the episode, because visually it looks great as well, like the way you've got all these really like flashy colours and visuals in the sky, and it's very like apocalyptic. So I really enjoyed the end of the episode and the fallout to this stuff. So it's a very strong episode. The other small thing, well, it's not a small thing, but Will finds out that Jack has left him half of his estate and in his will, and because Jack was really rich because of like the Chris business, then that's a lot of money, and it crosses Saul's mind, then Jack would probably want you to seek treatment. Then you've now got the money to maybe find a cure for you, and Will isn't so keen. He says, I don't really want to spend my remaining days popping like needles in my arms, and so he almost decides then he's not going to do that, and that he just wants to enjoy the rest of his like days. And he's there in his like hometown on like near the sea, and Saul's there, and the others come there in the next episode, which takes us on to episode 6. And the opening of this episode is really well done because it shows you the mass hysteria of people reacting to this big news. The cat is out the bag about the Sentinels being on their way, even though the government are telling people it won't be for another 400 years. They're still panicking, and there's obviously reason to panic because of some of the things that's going down, even though the actual aliens won't be here for another 400 and out of their lifetime. But you just see what it's causing, and this unknown factor, this worry from people, and all the divisions as well. And it gets pretty dark because like at one point Clarence sees a few people who have hung themselves on like lampposts, like almost like a statement type thing. But the way they use news footage in the opening bit is quite clever because they actually have like real news footage of Sunak and Biden, and they have like a Biden speech, and it seems like they've just used like a real one but maybe changed it. But then it makes me wonder if they've just done like an AI type thing for the sake of the episode, which would be pretty fitting considering some of the ideas of the show. But yeah, that was well done. That was well captured. You could see that's how it would play out if this thing actually happened in real life. And you get at one point people taking donations as well and doing a couple of different things. Again, something you could see happening if this was real life. And I also like some of the debates and the divide in this episode between the friends, because Jin and Oggy both disagree, because Jin in this episode is talked by Wade into coming on board as like his kind of lead in an operation to hit back at the other life forms. Like, he doesn't want to wait around, he wants to be doing something now. So they have a disagreement because of the money and the time this is going to take. Oggy points out, why are we bothering so much when they're not going to be here for another 400 years? She makes that age-old argument that, hey, resources could be better used for the people and the issues we've got today. Like, Jin counters that by saying, no, we've got to be doing something. This is like a major threat to us. And so you can see both sides, but definitely those are the sort of arguments that would be made. But it is a bit of a U-turn, and obviously Raj and Jin have been on the out sort of thing. But those sorts of debates, I think, are really intriguing, and the sort of debates you could imagine people having if this was the thing. There's also quite a good scene with Jin when she gets to the front to confront Lynn. Now, I forgot to mention in the last episode, Clarence plays Lynn the tape recording of Mike talking to the alien, and the whole thing about the lie thing and how the others became untrustworthy of Mike and of humans, and how things turned around. So that is kind of planting a few seeds in her mind about the intentions of these beings who she worships. Even though she's pretty steadfast in the episode, you can see it is starting to plant a few seeds of doubt. But Jin gets to confront her and question her about why she did what she did with Vera, why she did what she did with her. And we get some of like the typical rhetoric about how like the other beings are here to change the world for the better, to forge a new world. And Jin is like, well, have you seen some of the things they've been doing? How can you still think that? And it's a pretty powerful scene, and she leaves her with quite a strong parting shot where she says, like, you're a brilliant scientist, Vera often told me, but that won't be your legacy. Your legacy will be of a traitor. But yeah, it's very interesting. I do once again quite enjoy the science of the episode and how they lay it out, because when these group of scientists are telling Wade, and you're crazy, that we just don't have the technology, the resources, and they also say there's like environmental treaties that would be broken if we made this plan of attack, because at one point Jin talks about using the sun to try and counter like the lack of resources to like fire back, but she ends up coming up with a detailed plan, and this is where the science of the episode is really good, and you can see her plan in quite a tangible way, where she has the idea of these, that they're going to set off bombs, but the idea is that the bombs would strike each one of the probes, and as it went along there would be like a ripple effect, and that would slowly build up, so they would eventually get to the speed that they need to. And that's when the other scientists start to question, like, about the treaty, like environmental treaties being broken, like the finance and stuff like that. But ultimately Wade comes down on Jin's side, not surprisingly, and at one point they contact Oggy about getting involved, and we need your resource and science knowledge as well. And she's obviously hesitant because she's very much against this stuff now, especially after what happened the last episode, and her and Jin are like at loggerheads a little bit. So that's kind of, they're putting that in place. And also Raj is drafted in because he approaches Wade at one point, and Wade, he knows about this task force, like this space task force, and Wade's a little bit miffed because, like, well, you're not supposed to have that knowledge, but he wants to be on it because he feels like his current role is not exciting or meaty enough for someone of his talents. And Wade accepts, and he tells him you're going to the moon because they've had this idea that they can use the moon for like power sort of thing, extra energy. And there's a scene later on with Jim where she's talking about how like if we sent a camera it wouldn't survive, and Wade says, well, we're not sending a camera, we're sending a human. Now I'm assuming that human he's talking about is Raj, but it's never really confirmed. So that sets a little bit more tension between Raj and Jin, although they do make up by the end of the episode when he's like being there for her. But that's a big part of the episode, them putting this whole task force together and then putting this mission together. And obviously Oggy's very critical of Jin for doing what she's doing. Like, she calls Wade a fascist at one point and like a murderer. So the other big stuff is with Will. So the friends go to visit Will and they're all like there for him, and you get like debates about what to do, what exactly, like who's in the right, and they're all reacting to some of the news. And once again, you've got the tension with Jin and Will because of him still having feelings for her. And I do like them both. Sol and Oggy both agree on, yeah, you should pour your heart out to her. You should like tell her your feelings. What have you got to lose at this point? Because they do have, as Will says, like a nice sort of goodbye when they're sitting by the sea, and Jin offers to stay a few more days, and he's like, no, I won't have that. You need to go and save the world. And she does this nice thing where she like sort of puts together like two paper boats, floats them on the water, and she says, one is me, one is you. And it's just a nice little moment as they like sail there. And they do have a nice goodbye, but then the other two are obviously like shaming him into like opening up about his feelings, and Will is once again hesitant because, hey, she's got a boyfriend, and I think he doesn't want to be like, just because I'm dying, I'm now making a big deal. And I do like both Oggy and Sol saying fuck him when it comes to Raj. And yeah, this is interesting. Like, it's keeping me guessing, will there be a thing with Will and Jin before the end of the series, before the end of the story? I'm not too sure at this point, but I also quite like when they're talking about, they're just bonding, and they're doing this thing where they have to say one nice thing about each other. And Sol has this thing about Oggy where he says you're beautiful, but you're beautiful in that like action star type way, like almost like you're in like Speed 3, which is funny because there is no Speed 3. But I also wonder if it's a cheeky poke at the actress being in like Baby Driver, so a more action-packed style role maybe. But she does have that sort of look about her, so that's pretty funny as well. But yeah, they do shame Will into like going down to London and confessing his feelings for Jin. So he goes down, and it's when Jin and Raj are having their big heart to heart, and it's one of these TV coincidences. He comes along and he sees them like hugging, and he decides to turn back. But then there's lots of nice little beats with Will in the episode, like the way he does stand up for Jin and what she's doing, because he says to Oggy at one point, if Jin's doing it, then it must be with good intention. She must know what she's doing. And he's very supportive of the whole plan, which was clear when he told her to like go and save the world, basically. But the ending is very poignant once again, because it does appear when the others have gone away, because eventually Oggy agrees to help out. She agrees to be part of the mission and the task force, so she's going to be working with Jin. But Will goes into the sea. It's quite a poignant moment, and I might have misread it, but I did read it as he was maybe gonna commit suicide, because he did start walking into the sea and having a reflective moment. And I guess maybe he just felt, this was it, I'm in a good place, this is a good way to go out, I want to go out on my own terms, I don't want to suffer too much. So like, I got the impression maybe he was walking into the sea to maybe kill himself. Like, he was content with having spent the last few days with his friends and things like that. But then he notices the two boats kind of, they're still adrift, and I think that could be in his head. Like, that's just an image he's having, because chances are they either wouldn't still be afloat, or maybe they wouldn't still be in the same place, because I think it's meant to be at least a day later. But it's the symbolism of the whole thing, and that's like a turning point where he maybe decides he still has a bit more of a purpose. And you see him go off to, go to this fancy high-tech place, and at first I thought he was just taking in an exhibition, but it's in the foyer. They've got all this interactive stuff about the planet and the Earth, and then you see him talk to someone, and at first I thought he was gonna change his mind about like having more advanced like procedures to try and beat the thing, but no, it turns out he wants to buy himself a star for in the night and for in the sky. And I think it's just that symbolism that he has found sort of a more of a purpose once again. And yeah, nice end to the episode, very well done, and good episode for Will. Like, I have gotten a bit more into his drama as it gone along, so very nicely done. 2 strong episodes, I think. So that's the latest 2 from me of Free Body Problem. Let me know what you think of these episodes in the comments below. Like and subscribe. Share me out on social media, and I will return pretty soon. It won't be for a while with the next review of this because I am going away for a little bit, but as soon as I'm back I will return to it, and definitely going to finish this season off and see where we lead. But thanks for watching. You can support me for as little as $1 a month on patreon.com/borednow. But thanks for listening. Goodbye.